What's going on, guys? Coach Matt and YouGoProBaseball.com here with the man, Nick Shaw, former middle infielder for the Brewers organization and creator of the Baseball Box. It's a monthly subscription box where you get all kinds of baseball goodies shipped directly to your doorstep. You can check them out at thebaseballbox.com. And what we're talking about in today's video is what separates guys. What is it that guys do who make it versus guys who don't make it? And obviously, if you're playing this game, in my opinion, you want to have some aspirations to play, whether it's make the high school team or your college team or play professional baseball, whatever it is, you got to have some dreams and goals and aspirations. And that's kind of what we're talking about. What separates guys, right? Yep. I made a post, I think you saw the post, where I think it was 2.1% of high school baseball players will get to play Division I baseball. That's not getting scholarship money, that's just getting to play Division I baseball. And the number goes up slightly for Division II and Division III, but it's very, very small number of guys who play high school get to go on and play college. So from your perspective, what are some of the things that separate guys who make it versus don't make it?
I will talk on my personal experience first. All right, guys, I was undersized, as you may have heard in another video where I'm standing back to back with this guy, and I look tiny, all right? I am. I'm 5'9", 5'10", whatever. But in high school, I was only 5'3" and about 115 pounds, all right, as a freshman. Now, that wasn't a guy that showed up and you're like, yeah, he's in the lineup. No. You had to pass the eye test, you had to come out here and practice, you had to bust your butt, and you had to do a lot of things right, all right? And that's not something I could just flip a switch on and have happen when the lights are on or when practice is going on in front of the coach to impress him. That's something that had to happen away from the field, all right? And I was lucky to have some guidance when I was young, some good coaching to develop some very good habits, okay? Very good work ethic habits and mechanical stuff and everything like that. But I want to hone in on the work ethic, okay? Because that is what separates guys. That's what helped me, and that's what you see at the next level, why guys are so great, all right? I would come and I would work on my deficiencies, things I did bad, places I got out as a hitter. If I was getting out, up and in, the next day I would come to the field early and I would work on that pitch until I got it right, until I felt comfortable, all right? Fielding was my thing. If I could catch the ball consistently and make the routine plays, I knew I was gonna have a very good chance of being in the lineup. Now, if I could hit on top of that, that gave me a better chance too. But I would take this guy here, a racquetball, from when I was young, and I would play wall ball. It seems elementary, it is, but it develops a lot of good habits and it gives you soft hands. I would throw the racquetball against the wall of my house over and over and over again. Kids, run this by your parents before you do it, but I would go bare hand with a racquetball against my house, catching the ball with soft hands, moving my feet, making a strong throw against the wall, over and over and over again. Sometimes until it got dark out and mom's calling me in for dinner, all right? But it was no surprise the next day at practice that, I was able to field the baseball pretty good with some soft hands as well, all right? And the reason why I think it's important to use a racquetball is it's not very forgiving if you're hard with your hands. The racquetball will simply bounce off your hand and you'll have to go chase it, do that little walk of shame, pick up the ball, and get back in position to throw it again, okay? So those are a couple habits that I had. And another one was developed when I went to my hitting coach, who was a major league player. I was blessed to have him when I was a young age. I actually started going to him when I was 8. Seems young, but I was able to develop very good mechanics. He told me, and he gave me homework one day. He told me, I want you to work on your core and I want you to work on your forearms. He said, that is what baseball is. And I didn't completely understand it at that age, but every night he wanted me to do 50 sit-ups before I went to bed and 50 curls with 5-pound weights before I went to bed. So that was my routine. Now, I don't know if anybody else was doing it. A couple other guys on my team were doing it, but besides that, I don't know if they were doing it or not. But I really think that those habits there helped me progress to the next level and be ready when the lights were on the next day, or when I was at practice, I was ready to impress my coaches and the people watching.
That's funny you say that, because I used to do the same thing with my dad. He would bring me out to the wall ball courts. We had side walls and the back wall, and we would play a game called Errors. And I would throw it and he would field it, and then he would throw it and I would have to field it. And if you missed the ball, you made an error, you got a point. And we would play to, a certain number. And it was fun. It wasn't like practice. It was so much fun. We were trying to beat each other. And so I would be out there 2-3 hours of fielding practice. Now, I didn't grow up to be a professional middle infielder. I was a pitcher, But I definitely think that helped me along the way, helped me with hand-eye coordination, and even the throws, throwing the ball back, you know, just getting into that routine all the time and making practice fun. I think that's a big thing that we need to talk to about our coaches and our parents, because sometimes I see dads out there that, and I get it because now I have a son, that you want the best for your son. So you want to put in that extra work to help him get there. But if you make it a little too crazy and the kid doesn't want to do it himself, then I think you're kind of pushing him away from the game a little bit. I see so many guys who, when they get to the high school level, are just so burned out because dad or their private coach is just pushing them too hard and having too many standards on them at such a young age. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that's good. Like you said, work ethic is super important, but we have to find a way to get the athlete to enjoy it and have fun and want to do it himself, like get the passion, find the passion for it. Like Nick was saying, he's out there by himself doing that. Nobody's, you know, telling him. I'm sure coaches told him to be out there and doing it, but he was the one out there doing it because he enjoyed it. Same thing with me, it was fun, right? So we have to find a way to balance that, because again, like with my own son, you know, I find myself, and I used to, before I had a son, I used to talk about all these crazy baseball parents, like, can you believe what this dad is doing with this kid? I couldn't believe it. And then I had a kid, and you know, he's only 3 years old now, and I'm thinking, I wonder if he's gonna play in the major leagues. And I gotta stop. I'm like, I don't even know if he's any good, can he even hit a baseball. He barely can hit a baseball now, so I don't know. So I have to, you know, catch myself, and I get it, I understand it. We want the best for our kids, but we have to do a better job of kind of sitting back and understanding the big picture and how we can make it fun for the kid so that they're developing on their own and we could have a longer term plan versus trying to pound it into them and then they're burned out by high school, or they do it in college and then they hate dad when they're, you know, 20, 21, something like that. I hope that's not the case. So what else you got? I know there's so much we could talk about this.
Yeah, so I'll run a quick story by. I was working with a high school kid in my area, and I like to pick guys' brains and see what they're made of mentally, all right? You know, I can see physical skills and I can see what we need to work on, but I want to see if it's up here, because most of the battle is up here in the game. You've heard Yogi Berra, you've heard all that. It's a real thing, all right? You got to love the game up here and in here. You've got to love it. You've got to love the grind. You've got to love the struggle. So I'm picking this high schooler's brain, you know, he's got good hands and he works hard when I'm with him, and I'm like, so what's up, man? What do you do on your own? Do you work on your own? He's like, yeah. And I said, okay, what do you do? I said, what do you do when you make an error? He's like, for every error I make, I go to the local Little League after my game. So it could be a night game. He goes after his game to the local Little League, and he takes 100 ground balls for every error he makes. And it blew my mind. I said, you know what? That is so cool. I was the same way when I was younger, not at high school age. When I was younger, if I missed a ball in travel ball, 11U, 12U, 13U travel ball, the next day I would go to my dad, hey dad, can we go to the field early? I want to take some ground balls. I want to work on that play that I missed. That way I could get it right the next time it came to me. But just stories like that, you know? And I want to tell you, during team practice, there is time where you're kind of standing around, all right? But you don't have to sink there. Your work ethic can kick up a notch, okay? Sometimes the coach has to split you. Half the guys play defense, do infield work, outfield work. Half the guys go to the cage. A lot of times that group in the cage is unsupervised. Guys, get your work in. Do your routine. Have a routine, okay? Know what you're working on. Don't just go in there, lean on the bat, you know, play basketball with the baseballs in the bucket and kill time. Put that time to good use. Get your swings in. Work on what you need to work on. Then you can relax. Okay, it's all preparation. But if you take time to kind of just mellow out and kill time out here, you're not going to get any better in that time. Okay, so use your time wisely. Develop good habits and keep it fun. That is an excellent point. Keep it fun.
That's a great point with the routine too. We talked a lot about that in the Padres organization. When I got to pro baseball, they talked a lot about routine, and I didn't get it until I got there. I had a routine. I always had a routine. I was very structured, almost obsessive. I think a lot of the good players, great players, are kind of obsessive because it's a passion to them. But having that routine and understanding that routine is so important played a huge role in my development from there on out. Now, one other thing I want to talk about, and I don't want to be a downer in this video, but genetics do play a role, right? And I don't want to say that to say like, oh, you can't do this. Someone out there can't do this. Anyone can do it. Look at Altuve, right? Or someone like that, Pedroia, you know? These guys, obviously Nick is a great player, right? That's not the end all be all, but I think you have to have self-awareness when it comes to that, right? Like, I'm not going to be an NBA player. I'm never going to be, Nick's never going to be an NBA player. He never had the chance of being an NBA player, right? It's just not within our genetics, right? We're not tall enough. We're probably not fast enough. My shot was terrible, so that helped. 2 points per game average in high school is not going to get me a college scholarship in basketball, right? So I had to have that self-awareness and focus more on baseball, right? So self-awareness is key. But what I find is some guys are way too hard on themselves and other guys are way too confident, right? You got a guy who is terrible. I'm sure you guys have one on your team. A guy who is absolutely terrible, who talks so much crap about how good he is, right? We all have that guy on our team. It happens. And then there's a guy who really has a lot of skills, but he gets down on himself so much and he thinks he's like the worst player every time he makes a mistake. So you have to have self-awareness, but I want you to lean more on the positive end, right? You got to have that confidence. You got to have that, walk that line between confidence and cockiness, in my opinion. Some of the greatest players in the game are very almost cocky or cocky. So you got to kind of straddle that line, in my opinion. So it's having that self-awareness of what you are capable of doing. And if you know you are, lean on that positive end of the self-awareness so you can really have the confidence to move forward and develop and be the best player that you can be. Because if you're telling yourself that you stink all the time, that feeds into it, that mindset. You're going to start to really believe that you're not that good at the game, because baseball is a game of failure. And a lot of times it's coached by negative people. So when you make a mistake, the coach is in there yelling at you, what are you doing? You got to make, and you got parents possibly telling you, come on, we got to get better. You can't be making those errors out there like that. It's a game of failure. The best players, the best hitters in the game are failing 7 out of 10 times. So to be a great baseball player, you got to learn how to be a good failure, right? So that's what I'm going to leave you with. You got anything else in regards to that?
I want to piggyback on routine, and I want to piggyback on the cocky, confident thing, because that is huge. And it was crazy going into a big league clubhouse my first time and seeing the guys, Prince Fielder, Ryan Braun, all these guys that walked around confident, right? Maybe some can consider them cocky. I saw it as confidence. And where that confidence came from, guys, is their preparation. They were in the cage working. Before the sun came up in spring training, they're in there working, hitting, taking ground balls, obviously when it's light out. They're taking ground balls, they're putting in their reps. They're in the weight room doing their rotator cuff stuff, doing their agility stuff. But they were very, very confident, borderline cocky in their game because they prepared for it. They earned the right to have that confidence in their game. All right, and the routine. My personal experience, I had a hitting routine right before game time when I was in pro ball. I would run up the tunnel. After I threw, after I stretched, I would get out there early and stretch and throw. Before first pitch and before the anthem, I ran up the tunnel and got in my hitting routine. All right, my hitting routine was up and in with no lower body. All right, so I would load my hands and hit. Load my hands and hit. Just controlling my barrel. That was my routine. And when I didn't get to do it, I would freak out, to be completely honest, because it was my routine. That's what got me locked in. And that's why I had a lot of success. So it's finding a routine that works for you, that assists you in your game, and that you can rely on every game day to lock you in.
And that's Nick's routine. That's what I learned when I got the pro balls. You have to find your routine. You're gonna have coaches and parents and everybody's telling you to do something. They're trying to tell you the best way that they think you should do it, but you have to become your own player and find your routine, what works best for you to get you locked in and zoned in for the game. One other thing that popped in my head while you were saying that is competitiveness. Some of the best guys are super competitive and they're confident within that because they think that they can beat you. And it's good to be competitive, right? Healthy competitiveness between a teammate is a great thing because then you guys are gonna bring each other up. So if you can instill that competitiveness within you, that is definitely a good thing, especially when it comes to game time and you actually don't like, not competitiveness between your teammates, but the other team, and you don't like those guys and you have that fire and that intent within you to beat those guys. That is huge, especially in a long season, a game of baseball, which is typically slower. If you can have that passion and that competitiveness within you and keep it in you all game, you're gonna fuel yourself, not only yourself, but give your teammates energy to beat that team, beat the other team, and again, drive your teammates up because you're competing with them in a way that helps everybody grow.
And I'll piggyback you again on the competitive thing. This is actually lighting a fire in me, and I love this because it brings me back to my playing days. There's not a lot of times in team practice where you get to go 100% competitive game-like situation. There's not. Most of the time it's a lackadaisical, maybe 75, 80%. You might be busting your butt, but you might be going 85, 90%, right? Getting your reps, that's all good. But there's not a lot of times where you're 100% competitive. That's a mindset that has to be there in game time, and it has to be practiced. For that to be perfect or close to perfect, I have to practice that as well. So if I used to play a little ground ball game with my fellow infielders where our coach would smoke balls at us, right? We'd wear balls, whatever, but we would play against each other, catching the baseball, catching the baseball, catching the baseball. The person who missed it would have to sit out, and we would keep going, keep going, keep going. And those games got heated and they lasted a long time, and you took some pride in winning, right? That way the next day in a game, the ground ball hits you, you had that competitiveness already in you. And actually it made me relax a little bit. I was actually more worked up out here trying to beat my teammates than I was in the game, and it relaxed me a ton. And it wasn't until pro ball where I learned I could be competitive in another sport, and it was ping pong, okay? And it got to a point where the clubhouse would go crazy over ping pong, surrounded by that many guys that have perfected the competitive mindset that is required to play professional baseball, surrounded by that many guys with that much spare time and a ping pong table was an unbelievable experience. I mean, talking about 25 guys surrounded around a small little ping pong table with guys diving, sweating. It was incredible.
Going absolutely nuts, right?
Yeah, absolutely nuts, throwing things, yelling. But it was a time to lock in the competitiveness and just challenge each other. Challenge each other, you know? So it's great to practice competitiveness, and you don't get a lot of times to do it. But anytime you do, please do it, because it matters when it's game time.
Ping pong too is great for hand-eye coordination. I think baseball players are probably the best athletes in the world, in my opinion, my biased opinion. But ping pong is great for hand-eye coordination. I also tell my kids, juggling, learn how to juggle. A lot of kids these days don't even know how to juggle. It's get 3 balls and learn how to juggle. But yeah, ping pong is huge. I still have battles with my best friend, Troy Bell. What's up? Shout out. We still, when we get together these days, if there's a ping pong table, we're going at it for hours and talking so much trash to each other. It literally, we still talk trash every single day about who's going to win the next ping pong match. So that's huge, and the competitiveness is huge. You want to end it there? Because we could probably talk for more hours, but thank you so much for watching. Drop down in the comments below, let us know if we forgot anything. We'll make another video about this. Again, we could probably talk for hours about this. Don't forget to check out thebaseballbox.com, subscribe to YouGoProBaseball YouTube channel, and Nick and I actually were talking about possibly putting together some camps, and we want to get some feedback from you. Maybe we'll come to your city. Let us know where you're from, and if you're interested in something like that, we could do an infield camp, hitting, possibly some pitching. I don't know, we're just throwing ideas around right now, but if that's something that interests you, drop down in the comments, let us know, and maybe we'll make something happen in that aspect. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you like this, and we'll talk to you soon.